Hello, I'm Sean Lowery, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Lowry Solutions. And on today's webcast, I will be joined by Rich Jakimak, Territory Manager of Media Products at Honeywell. Rich, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So Rich, today we wanted to share some of the ideas with the audience on how to move from compliance printing to value-added managed print solutions. And specifically, when organizations approach industrial print from a solutions perspective, they can multiply the value it brings to the enterprise beyond just customer compliance. So I'd like to also touch on label verification, which has been identified by VDC as a key trend in the market moving forward. Here we can see some of the various technology trends as it relates to the AIT-V market. But before we get into label serialization and verification, I'd like to tell the audience where we would suggest them getting started in approaching a managed print solutions, which brings us to step one, looking at the total label cost.
Sean, where you probably would want to start is you got to change the perspective of the label. It's not just a sticker. We need to look at it as a database, a mobile database. Just like a normal database needs to be protected from corruption, so does the label. And you'd probably ask, how do we do that? First off, we need to determine the environment that the label is going to operate. What will it be subjected to? What will the material that we're labeling? Is it a carton? So we have to look at adhesive, is it plastic, that type of thing. Also in that environment is the temperature that we're going to subject that label to, and external contaminants such as moisture, chemicals, things like that. That all gets incorporated. Plus, we have to look at how is it being handled after it's labeled, during transportation. Is there a risk for scratches, etc.? And what length of time does that label need to last? Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it 6 years? So we have to look at the environment.
Yeah, and so Rich, kind of speaking of the environment, I'm assuming based upon those considerations with the environment, that's how you determine what types of label materials and ribbons are needed?
That's correct. So what we want to get across is a good label. So we're looking at the environment, that's part of it. Then we look at what material does the actual label need to be based on that environment. Is it a simple paper label, or is it a synthetic material that's more durable? That will then determine what type of ribbon's needed, which we can vary from wax to wax resin to resin, full resin, again, depending on the material and the environment and longevity of the label. And also taking into account what's being printed. Are we printing barcodes, 1D and 2D barcodes? Also the size of the barcode and the human readable. What type of distance are you trying to read that from? So we have to have a good label to start with.
So Rich, and then speaking of the label printing and print quality, the next question would be, like, how do you validate the print quality in the barcode? So as I mentioned earlier on the trend slide, inline print verification has been around for some time, but it's been a challenge from an operational perspective. Specifically, some of the solutions we've deployed in the past they're much slower when printing with verification. And so oftentimes they want to be able to achieve those same types of speeds for their production environment when doing inline verification. But I know Honeywell has brought a whole new print platform to market to overcome some of those challenges and has some additional benefits as well. Which brings me to the next step to the audience, which is to optimize your technology. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about this new print platform.
I'm glad to. Basically, that's the PX940V. So once we look at the label requirements for that database, now we have to look at the actual database, which is the printed information on the label. How are we going to get it there? Using the Honeywell PX940V, V standing for verification capabilities, which uses an integrated barcode verifier, we're looking at trying to get to error-free printing. So what I'm saying, Sean, is as we're printing the label, we're verifying every single barcode, whether it's 1D or 2D, and we're scanning it right after it's printed. And we're grading it up against ANSI standards to make sure that we're within requirements. At that time, if during the printing, if we find that we're not meeting the minimum requirements that the customer requires, we then take that label, back it into the printer. We do an overprint to make it obvious to the user that that's not a good label, and then we reprint the label. So what we're doing is make sure every label is accurate and good on the barcode. This ensures that we're meeting the accuracy that's required by the customer and their customers. The goal is to eliminate any types of fines, chargebacks, regulatory guidelines that are being missed because the data is corrupted, and then any type of lawsuits that could transpire. So if we can eliminate this, we eliminate the additional corrective actions that are needed, such as returning product because of bad barcodes, things like that. And again, the whole process becomes more efficient because it's being done automatically.
Sure. So, Rich, I hear referencing the customer compliance and meeting specific requirements. So I would imagine, therefore, you'd introduce a need to like keep that type of information on record in case there's any questions or disputes in the future.
That's correct. The printer has many capabilities. One of them is internally, it is logging every single label that it is printing and the barcode pass-fail requirements. So within the printer, it's in the memory, and that you can access that at a later date, download it for archiving, et cetera, for long-term storage. But it's keeping track of everything. The printer is also extremely accurate in its placement of the barcodes. It will register within 0.2 millimeters in positioning. So if you've got a customer that requires information in a specific area, they're trying to line things up, things like that, that way it's going to be right where they expect it to be. So we also have the intelligence in the printer gives the customer predictive analytics. So like printer health and maintenance, what type of alerts. If you're having problems with the print head, it'll send out an alert that, hey, I've got an element that's out. I need to replace the print head, which affects barcodes and your read rates. And also the historical data as well to how often that happens. So the user can look at it and build a whole program around the printer. And then they can also, some of the other capabilities is managing the printer. For setting them up initially, that you can set up one printer and then broadcast it to additional printers as you move them around the facility or add them. You can also do some troubleshooting. Like I said, you get the alerts that you've got a problem with the printer. And then if you have to do any type of firmware upgrades, add additional security, things like that, you can do that through the intelligence of the printer.
Okay. I know, hear from a lot of IT perspective, right? The ability to remotely manage that stuff across the enterprise is a big need today. But Rich, the question I have for you is, how do companies go about defining what types of managed print services and technology they need?
Sean, what usually needs to happen is doing an on-site label and print assessment. You're going to look to optimize the media and printing operation at the customer. What that's going to do is you're going to take a look at all the labels that are being used throughout the facility. You're going to look at size, material, things like that, and try to see, can I consolidate those? You'll find a lot of operations, you might have a label very close in size. So you can start combining them and get some efficiencies there. Also, at the same time, you're doing a printer consolidation. So you're going to look at the locations of the printers and, are people walking in between locations to get to those printers? So you're going to optimize the efficiency of those printers and where they're located. So going through all that, you're spending a lot of time looking at the total cost, which is in addition to the label, it could be how many labels you do have. You're going to look at consolidating those, try to pare them down to save costs, and then look at different ordering patterns so you can benefit from volume runs, things like that.
So Rich, I can see how it might be a little overwhelming for procurement teams to analyze that level of data, and they may or not even have that data available to them, which, so I'd suggest for the audience working with a comprehensive print solution partner to better understand some of the contract programs. Can you walk us through some of those programs?
Sure thing, Sean. There's several different ones. There's a traditional, what we call make and hold agreements. That would be, I know I need to make, a 6-month supply. I hold it in inventory, and then the user starts pulling off of that inventory. So it's a make it and hold it. So you predetermine quantity and length of time that will last. To take that a step further and to try to automate it and make it more efficient, there's also what's called replenishment programs. Those are automated because you're going to determine what's the minimum amount of inventory I want on hand and what's the maximum. And what happens there is the label manufacturer then, as the volume of inventory gets close to the minimum amount, they then create a production order to bring it back up to the replenishment amount, the maximum. So the customer is never out of labels, and it allows them to keep pulling off of inventory. It's more of a perpetual inventory. You're not looking at 60 days or 90 days or 120 days. It's a full year program. And then, what they might be, some labels may not fall into that based on volume. And then you mix in what we call make and ship. I know I need X amount of labels. I have it manufactured and I ship it in. So you can have a combination of all three. And then some other programs that Honeywell happens to offer is if you're using a Honeywell printer with Honeywell media, you get free print heads. It's similar to just like a car. Print head is going to wear out over time, just like the tires of your car. What Honeywell's saying is, if you're using our media, we will replace the print heads for free.
Great. I like that analogy. Kind of, if you're putting our gas in the car, you get free tires with it, right? So,
correct.
Great. Well, Rich, thank you for joining me today. I hope the audience has learned some key takeaways regarding print verification and managed print services. If the viewers would like to learn more, there's a tremendous amount of resources on both Lowry and Honeywell's websites, and the links will be included in the description below. Also, if you contact Lowry and reference this webcast, you will qualify for a free print assessment like Rich was talking about. We have some of our expert supplies consultants come out and understand if there's ways to optimize your supplies as well as your printers. And if you have found the content useful, please keep an eye out for upcoming webcasts when we discuss Honeywell's operational intelligence platform and how the platform's enabling solutions from predictive analytics to proximity tracking to some of the remote print capabilities we talked about today. And lastly, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll automatically be notified when we post new videos to the YouTube page. Thanks for joining us today, and please tune in to our upcoming webcasts.